Yeah, and I think that's a really good shout too, because right now, if I'm completely honest, I'm not going to be surprised if I see a double Basket Legion popping up on the screen, because you've got that pivot action going at least from one of the sides, and then you've got the immediate wall-breaking damage potential coming out from the other. But we're going to have to go ahead and find out trainers as we're hopping straight into the lead. There it is on the one side, accompanied by the Golden Go, and we've got the mouse ape combination over on Paul's end.
Okay, so you got one Basket Legion right. So we are going to see the one coming in. I mean, listen, I don't think it was necessarily a bad call out, but I think what you can tell from both of these trainers is they're very reluctant to actually bring out the Pelipper. You don't want to set up the rain for your opponent if you don't actually have a piece to take advantage of it, and that is going to be something that Paul RUIZ doesn't have by leaning into this Mouse Hold and Annihilate combo. The biggest thing, though, is if Francesco actually does bring in this Pelipper, this Basket Legion is going to be really fast. And this particular Annihilate has a Fire Terra, so no way to actually resist something like a Wave Crash. You're just going to make yourself really susceptible to it if you aren't even going to be susceptible to the last respects first.
And we may even see an interaction similar to round one of the stream, where we just see the Pelipper being hard switched in right now, going for the full damage potential read here, as we actually see the Golden Go does switch out. So I think Francesco's idea right now is to pick up a KO, at least on the Mouse Hold, but Paul may have actually gone for the defensive play to anticipate that situation.
I mean, there's very few things, though, that can actually resist the damage from this Basket Legion. You're also going to see a Terastallization committed here, and it's going to be a Terra onto the Basket Legion. So if you didn't think that these Splash Plate Wave Crashes were going to hurt before, they're going to hurt a lot more with this rain setup and this Water Terra to boot.
Think again as, very nice play from Paul there, actually guaranteeing that he does not want the Mouse Hold to leave the field. Very well scouted. Wave Crash does try to target it down, and Archaludon, a really nice switching hit, because at least it's going to resist the water typing at, of course, the benefit of being able to have a +1 given via its stamina ability.
We have seen in the past, though, that sometimes resisting some of these attacks is actually not enough.
True.
So we'll have to see where this Basket Legion is trained and if this Archaludon can withstand some of that pressure. But one thing is for sure, you do have the Friend Guard that might be able to help a little bit with this Mouse Hold. That could be some way that you're able to maybe make that calculation a little bit easier for yourself. But Basket Legion is still going to be difficult to deal with. It is still the fastest thing on the field right now with Swiss Swim.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of the importance of having that immediate pressure versus a setup sweep strategy, which benefits the person that has that pressure to just go for the raw damage. As, whoa, we actually see an interaction protect from the Basket Legion wanting to safeguard itself from that Electro Shot, enabling Paul to get that stamina set up via the beat up. Like you called out there, Rose, we've got a third hit right now, and guess what? We're going to have a fourth. So this Archaludon is going to be a +4 right now, while still resisting that Pelipper if it goes for any damage moves.
Yeah, that's a huge deal for Paul to be able to get that. You've got the Electro Shot now. You're going to be able to beef up your special attack on top of that. And if you did actually send it into the Pelipper, you're going to bring it down to its Focus Sash, and it's going to be so much easier to remove. It's into the Protect, but you care a lot more about that special attack boost. Pelipper's going to set the tailwind, though, so this speed control is going to be nice for whatever decides to come in after that.
Yeah, but I do feel like at this point, Paul just easily goes for another Protect with the Mouse Hold. If I'm completely honest, you're not really scared of the Basket Legion Pelipper, so it's more so, can you find a potential adaptation and a switch out from Francesco's side in order to try to change the board just a tiny bit, but you've got to be very cautious about which Pokemon you want to bring in, because right now, I'm not going to be surprised if we see either a Body Press or even an Electro Shot. Most likely Electro Shot, because you've got the Golden Go switch. If Francesco can read the move that Paul is going to go for, he might be able to catch him out at least for this one turn.
Paul can play this a little bit slower. You don't necessarily want to give Francesco the free turns to use the Tailwind, but this Basket Legion switch also makes a lot of sense. I think right now you are very worried about this +1 from the Archaludon actually going to be able to knock you out. And so why not bring in the Archaludon of your own that's also going to have an Assault Vest and see if you can try to take advantage of the slow play now.
Yeah, and I think that's what both of these trainers have identified, this Mouse Hold really being a key piece for Paul's side, being able to have that Friend Guard enabled on the field, as we do see Paul actually opting to go for the damage mitigation side of things, break the potential Focus Sash on that Pelipper, an actual confirmed Focus Sash, but more importantly, bringing that Archaludon on the other side down to -1. And we already know Archaludon from Paul's side is at +4 of its defenses, so it's not exactly going to be scared from a KO potential double up from both sides.
Yeah, I mean, you're not worried about the body press. That's definitely going to be something that the defense boosts are going to help against. But you love being able to land this Snarl into both the Archaludon and the Pelipper, which are mainly going to be utilizing those special attacks. I think at this point, too, you've got your own stamina boost. You got your own body presses. This is going to be a very vulnerable Archaludon. Basket Legion already got a chance to utilize the Terra, so this Archaludon has to stay in, even with the Tailwind behind it and it being able to move first. Very unlikely it's going to secure a KO here.
Yeah, but I think that's what Francesco's hope is, at least with this mouse hold, which is proving to be such a nuisance for his strategy right now. Nearly guaranteeing a 2-hit KO there. Combination Weather Ball, -1, because there's a crit actually, which may have actually been quite important there. I did not anticipate the Pelipper at -1 of special attack to be able to pick it up, and the body press survival.
Wow, so the body press survival is actually kind of big. I mean, you're able to allow this Archaludon to take another turn of an attack in Tailwind. You're also going to be able to go back to neutral with that Electro Shot boost. And so maybe you're able to chunk down the Annihilate, get something else into range. You have your Golden Go in the back, which is the end game that you're playing towards. So Francesco needs to chew through this Archaludon and also make sure that you get through this Annihilate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. At this point, we've got one final turn of Tailwind remaining over on Francesco's side. Of course, the Archaludon is now at neutral because of the Electroshock boost that was able to attain. But at this point, I don't expect Paul to be scared to just say, right, I'm either going to set up on Annihilate right now, or I'm just going to guarantee pretty much pick up a KO if I can, and just try to scout out and force that immediate pressure onto Francesco to not allow him any sort of wiggle room, because we know the Basket Legion is waiting to get Last Respect boosts in the back.
Take a look at the body press. I mean, the stamina boosts have been coming in clutch for both of these Archaludons to be able to survive these body presses, but this in particular, for Paul, is the perfect setup to deal with both the Archaludon from Francesco and also have the Assault Vest to help keep you safe from this Pelipper that still has that Snarl drop attached.
Oh yeah, and this is the sort of like board pressure that Paul has right now. He's like saying, okay, you're either going to try to get rid of my Archaludon or you're going to try to get rid of my Annihilate, so I might as well not protect and lose any sort of momentum, and henceforth that's what we're seeing right now. Electroshock now boosted by +2 of its special attack, does pick up the Pelipper as the Tailwind will now expire, and all of a sudden we've just got Paul absolutely going wild in terms of board positioning.
It's perfect. I mean, you stalled at the Tailwind, so now you know that you're going to have an opportunity here to be faster than this Golden Go, which is going to be sort of the biggest key threat. You've also gotten rid of the rain on the Pelipper, so now if the Basket Legion comes back in, it has one less modifier that it's going to be able to hit you heavy with. At this point, though, after losing so many Pokemon, maybe you're actually looking at a Last Respects angle that might be a little bit better, but Paul is very safe right now to be able to go for this Terra. You know your Annihilate is also going to have a big boost here to your defenses, but the Fire Terra almost more important to deal with something like the Make It Rain from the Golden Go.
Yeah, and I think the speed interactions is going to be quite important here between the Archaludons. I wouldn't say necessarily very important, but it's just more so, can Francesco pick up a KO on this Archaludon, which honestly, I feel like is one of the main threats, because at least from the back, you've got Basket Legion. It can sweep, whether we see the Terrafire from the Annihilate, or if it retains its regular typing and still susceptible to Last Respects.
Well, the Rage Fist is going to be able to pick up the Archaludon, so now Francesco is going to be down to just this Golden Go and this Basket Legion. So if he wants to be able to get through the rest of this game, he's going to have to secure a knockout very, very quickly. The Annihilate does take super effective damage from that Shadow Ball, but with this special defense drop, it's going to get a Defiant boost, so that is a huge deal for Paul to be able to have at his disposal. He's also going to get some recovery, but this Annihilate now, if it's able to just kind of sit on the field and be happy, you've got this Basket Legion that comes back in, and geez,
my lordy.
Just one Snarl onto the Golden Go.
Okay, I get it. It's single target. I get it. But like, this is
Holy
a
cow.
plus, what was it, +2 or +3 special attack? Archaludon, that is absolutely insane.
That's so much damage. Now the Basket Legion comes back in for Francesco. You don't have the rain anymore. Even though this Annihilate is going to be at lower HP, it does have a defense boost thanks to the bulk up that it has. So that is going to be a way that even if this Basket Legion is faster outside of the rain, you're probably going to survive unless it does go for something like the Last Respects.
I mean, the momentum is so in Paul's favor. I know, right? Like, obviously, like Francesco's doing the best to try to play to their win cons. It just feels like it might be a bit too little too late because of the overwhelming setup that Paul has actually been able to utilize, not only on one of his Pokemon, which is, by the way, +6 defense, but also on that Annihilate at the same time, as Atmojet is going to come out and focus down on the Annihilate, not pick up the KO though.
Yeah, it does so little damage at this point. Annihilate is able to fire back the Rage Fist, and that's going to take out the Golden Go here.
Wow, that's it. And I think that's all she wrote, at least for game one, as the Archaladon is going to go ahead and focus down. Might even just go for the body press, to be honest. Yeah, it's at +6. Might as well.
Why not?
Let's see, does it pick up the KO? Oh,
it sure does.
KO. What are we talking about? But yeah, so all of a sudden we see such an emphatic game one win from Paul. And what style as well, having this sort of dual setup mode going. But I think one of the main contributors there has to be that mouse hold.
That mouse hold was really important because it provided Paul with a lot of versatility. You could either go for the setup onto the Annihilate, or you could go for the setup onto the Archaladon, opting to go for the latter. This Archaladon used those defense boosts to not only keep itself safe from those big physical threats like the Basculegion, but you were also able to dish out a ton of damage with body press. I think if that Archaladon on Francesco's side actually didn't have a stamina boost, I actually think it's a one-hit knockout onto the Archaladon, even at +4.
Yeah.
So I think Francesco in the second game has to figure out a way, okay, I used the Terra on my Basculegion. I didn't get a chance to do anything with it. I also allowed this setup onto this Archaladon, and with the rain that I gave over, this Archaladon was able to get so many boosts with Electroshock for free.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you've identified that turn quite nicely. It's the fact that there was that turn to protect from the Basculegion, not wanting to try to commit and be susceptible to an Electroshock KO from Paul's Archaladon, and we had the side setup of the beat up into that Archaladon, which just allowed it so much longevity when it came to its position. I was like, yeah, you know what? No, I'm not benched out at all. I'm just going to stay here for the remainder of the game and just sweep up.
We didn't even see Paul's 4th Pokemon hit the field.
Right? Yeah, I know,
like,
exactly.
Francesco never saw it. We ended up getting a chance to see it in the Pokemon party, but Francesco never got a chance to see it, and so you can't help but wonder if you're Francesco. Is there a Pelipper that I ever have to play around? Or is Paul kind of doing the thing we were talking about where you just bank on the fact that your opponent has the Pelipper, and you don't actually have to bring that piece to the puzzle at all.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout, because you could easily, I think it may have been a Sinistra that we observed there, but that makes so much sense, because if you're scared of, let's say, like Tailwind focus from the other side of the field, at least you've got the option of Trick Room too. But we are getting straight into game 2, and all of a sudden it does look like it's going to be a bit of a run back to an extent. We've got the Golden Go and the Basculegion versus, once again, the Mouse Hold and the Annihilate.
So a potential setup here for Paul. Francesco also has the opportunity to run back what he did on that first turn of game number 1, bring in the Pelipper, allow this Basculegion to do something. The only problem is that your Basculegion has to actually accomplish something in this game. That was really the thing that was missing from Francesco, being able to punch through this Annihilate or this Archaladon. But you have to do something with it.
Well, exactly, and sort of like got indirect attention forced on it because it doesn't have like a focus sash that we saw earlier in the stream, and it's got the safety goggles, which means it's probably going to be susceptible to a Wave Crash Terra Water multiplier accompanied by the rain. So that is just really the name of the game. I'm curious to see mind games right now if Francesco is going to anticipate Paul to not go for that same play, make an adaptation, and go on the offensive with the beat-up setup.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these Annihilate right now are trained to be pretty bulky, but it's still a lot of damage that you're going to be taking in with all of the different modifiers. You're going to see the Terra committed onto the Basculegion again. It's going to get rid of that weakness to something like the Rage Fist, but can this Annihilate actually survive if it's going to be the target of something like Wave Crash?
Ooh, and no protects and no Archaladon switching. The target is going straight into that Annihilate, and it is annihilated completely from this game 1. So sort of what we were talking about there, Rose. Paul trying to get a bit cheeky once again and go for the side beat up, anticipating defensive play from Francesco.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge turn for Francesco to have, because already in this game number 2, we're seeing this Basculegion do the Basculegion things we know and expect from it. Yes, you get a chance to bring in this Archaladon. Yes, it's in the rain, but you've already allowed Basculegion to get you a Pokemon advantage. And we've seen how much damage it can do to something like the mouse hold. This might not work the same way, even if you were trying to get the beat up setup into your Chaladon. I like what you called out there. I do think that what Paul was going for was very, very risky. It was greedy and it didn't pay off. No,
it definitely didn't. I think it's sort of that anticipation of saying, okay, surely Francesco's not going to go for the same play, but he is. Second wave crash coming right now, consecutive, does pick up the second KO. This is exactly what Francesco was looking to do in game 1 and has been able to accomplish thanks to that read in game 2.
Oh boy, I mean, this is where things might still be a workaround here for Paul. You have the opportunity to go for Electro Shot. You get the special attack boosts, but you are looking to try to secure some type of knockout. The Pelipper has the Focus Sash, so it's going to be able to stick around. I was thinking maybe if you're able to weather the storm a little bit, pun absolutely intended, then maybe you are able to actually get yourself back into this game. But I feel like after 2 KOs, even the Sinistra coming in here, it's not getting maximum value because our Chaladon hasn't taken any damage, so the Hospitality isn't really going to do very much for you. And I think even if you do actually set up the Trick Room, you're still in a pretty difficult spot. Yeah, I mean, I don't even see this Sinistra being able to set the Trick Room because you've got the Wave Crash Terra Water boosted by Rain. You've got the Hurricane option as a double up, and this Sinistra is a grass type right now. It's going to resist water, but if it terras, it's no longer going to be able to, and there's a very good chance that it will actually pick up the KO, dependent on whether it is bulky enough. I do think you're going to have to terrestrialize it anyway, though. You see the opportunity for the Pelipper to go for Hurricane. You also see the opportunity for this Basket Legion to go for Last Respects. It's still not going to do a whole lot of damage, but double up is going to be a lot for this Sinistra to have to deal with. The Wave Crash here is also still going to be a physical threat. So, as you said, not going to be able to resist it because it's not grass type anymore, but you have to kind of play the cards, and I think at this point, Paul is so far behind, you had to hope that maybe it was just the Hurricane and nothing else, and you could still get the Trick Room set up. Yeah, I think you put it quite nicely there, because at this point, it's like we mentioned, if you're able to position your Basket Legion to sort of, like we say, do its role. You are a wall breaker, my friend. You just need to go and break those walls, break those Pokemon down with the overwhelming amount of damage, and we see the confirmed connect of the double with the Hurricane, just in case for good measure, the Sinistra does survive. It does give a boost right now to the Archaladon in its defense. Snarl does pick up a KO, but we've still got Tailwind available on Francesco's side. We've got a super healthy Golden Go and a potential final Pokemon, which honestly, it may well even be the Archaladon once again over on Francesco's side. Well, the Golden Go is going to be a really key piece here, because I think what you're looking at is Golden Go's ability to have I was going to say immortality. Immortality to body press. Yeah. Immunity to body press is the word. If it's a +6, you never know. Yeah, well, glad you're ghost type. This Archaladon is surely not going to be able to survive that, but you can kind of see Paul sort of thinking out, is there an opportunity for me to actually win this game? You did just get a stamina boost. You could actually go for body press onto the opposing Archaladon, but at this point, you need to make sure that this Assault Vest can actually do something for you in the face of this Golden Go. Yeah, and I think there's the option of Paul to maybe try to go for like a Snarl or something like that, but at this point, you really need to pick up a KO straight away, and I don't necessarily see how you can do that. And we see Francesco not even opting to go for the Nasty Plot, just wants to guarantee that damage, and even potentially find out a bit of speed interactions if, of course, Tailwind has petered out. Dragon Pulse will actually move first from Francesco's side, not quite enough to pick up a KO, but at this point, it's just going to be a closing curtain scenario. We see that Francesco's done a really good job in being able to bring this back. Very, very good job of being able to bring it back. And it all comes back to that very first turn of this game, where instead of playing a little bit more defensively with the Basket Legion, recognizes and understands that you have to do something with it. Right. And in fact, in this game, Basket Legion was able to secure 3 KOs. Insane. With its HP pool, only sacrificing a little bit of recoil for every single wave crash. Yep. So pretty phenomenal there. This Goldeo does go for the Nasty Plot, and so a bit of BM. Maybe no, I'm not sure. I think you're just like, you got to play it safe, because the Golden Go is still going to be able to maybe move first. But listen, great stuff from Francesco. 100%. I think you have to give him so much credit for identifying the mistake in game number 1 and recognizing that Basket Legion is in a better spot than he thought it was. Yeah, and I think you identified that quite nicely. It's just more so around, can you allow the board for Basket Legion to completely flourish? And that's essentially what we saw in that game 2. Now, real question is, Paul,
how do you treat this game 3? Do you even want to play safe? Do you want to go risky? Like, surely you're a bit shook from that situation, because I'm expecting both trainers to bring the exact same Pokemon going into game 3, and it's just more so going to be a battle of mental fortitude between them. You know, what scenarios do you feel like your opponent's going to try to look for? As we see, Wave Crash through Friend Guard, by the way, in rain, of course, enough to pick up the KO one-shot onto the Annihilate. It had no chance. It's just sweeping Pokemon left, right, and center, and just forcing this game 3.
We're going to see this a lot this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
We are really going to see this a lot this weekend. Like, I don't want to do the mental math right now, but you called out Rain, you have the Water Terra, you have Splash Plate, you have the same type of attack bonus from going for Wave Crash. There are just so many multipliers that make this move so strong. I think even if Sinistra actually doesn't Terra there, I think you're still toast, the poor thing. But it's just kind of impressive to watch how both of these players are navigating the fact that this is a rain matchup. I still think that there's a way that maybe we get a chance to see Paul switch it up. I'm a little surprised that he doesn't want to necessarily rely on his own Basculegion in this matchup, just because of how dominant Francesco's has been. But the big difference between the two of them is that Paul has Choice Band. You can't use Protect. That is a move that gives you so much flexibility when being able to play a mirror matchup. You're just locked into something. So we'll have to see whether or not he does stick to the same game plan, or if he wants to try to dish out a little bit of what Francesco has to him.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if we're seeing our Chaladon lead from Paul's side. You want to try to get that immediate momentum straight onto the field. Sure, there's a Golden Go to take into consideration, but it's not going to guarantee a KO straight away, as we do get confirmation, same leads at least from Francesco's side, and there it is. The Archaladon has paired itself out right now with the Mousehold. So Paul completely recognizing Annihilate felt like a bit of a heavy burden to be able to force these mind games that could have lost in the game from turn 1.
Exactly right, because with the Annihilate, you can always expect Francesco's Basculegion to be faster. You can set up the rain. You know you're going to be able to secure a knockout, especially because the Annihilate can't tear away. And even if you do actually go for the Follow Me, the Annihilate is never going to be able to take you out if you terrestrialize the Basculegion. Rage Fist doesn't actually hit that hard if it doesn't have any stacks on it. So this Basculegion would have been perfectly safe. In fact, I would assume that the Golden Go might be as well, but there's no switches. It's just going to be the Basculegion going for the Terra again for this third and final game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be trying to catch out that mouse hold on whether it doesn't even go for the Protect. That might be the situation, but it does. So Paul's saying, no, I really want to position myself to the point where I can utilize this Friend Guard for a while, but Francesco's saying, right, I'm going to have a counterplay to that. I'm going to get a nasty bluff set up, bring myself up to +2 of a special attack in anticipation of this Snarl that does bring it back down now to +1 whilst getting a tiny bit of a crit on Basculegion. Not going to matter that much, but I'm curious to see what it does.
I'm very curious to see what it does as well. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to because the Mousehold goes for the Protect, so we won't see the Wave Crash actually hit its mark. But I like that Francesco has changed things up again for this third game. It was pretty telegraphed for games 1 and 2 that Francesco's idea was to be able to bring in the Pelipper, make sure that this Basculegion could be faster, but you kind of hedge your bets a little bit. You know that this Mousehold has only a couple of options that it could go for. You're going to be able to catch it with a Wave Crash no matter what.
Yeah, and I think there's a really good play and pin that Paul's recognized there, where Francesco will have to try to bring in the rain in order to pick up a K on the Mousehold, but at the same time, in parallel, that will allow the Archaladon to go for Electro Shot straight off the bat, as we see no switch out there and no drop of the Nasty Plot as well set up from the Golden Go, so it does allow Paul room to now get those stamina boosts.
Stamina boost really helpful for something like this Basculegion. We don't see a whole lot of other physical attackers on Francesco's team outside of something like the Incineroar, but we have no idea if it's actually going to end up coming to this game. It doesn't necessarily have anything that can hit this Archaladon super effectively, but Francesco's just going for it again. Maybe a little bit greedy, but this Golden Go sitting at +3 right now is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is, but I guess at the same time, this allows Francesco to at least hit those +2 special attack damage calculations that probably needs to do so. But I'm curious, does this Wave Crash actually pick up the KO without the rain? Ew, wow, it actually does.
I like you're just like, ew.
Ew, like what?
Ew.
That's just disgusting damage.
I know,
Ew.
that's without the rain. That is honestly insane. But yeah, the fact that it's able to pick up the KO there, Francesco knows something that obviously we did not with these calculations. And so removing that, you're going to make this Archaludon just a little bit more vulnerable without the front guard.
Yep.
But more importantly, you're still going to be able to keep this Basket Legion around, hopefully, to be able to dish out another KO. Really well played here from Francesco so far, and Paul now needs to figure out what he wants to actually bring in. We see that it is going to be Basket Legion, which is a switch up from these first two games.
Yeah.
And where's the Pelipper?
Well, I mean, at the moment, I guess this is sort of like Paul saying, please, do you have a Pelipper on your side that you may be able to help give support to my own Basket Legion? But yeah, this is sort of like what we were talking about, and you called out as well, Rose, having the Basket Legion to apply that sort of same dynamic of having an immediate wall breaker available, especially when you've seen Francesco bring Pelipper both in Game 1 and Game 2, does allow you a bit more room to try to steamroll Francesco as much as possible. And it most likely will not outspeed this Life Orb Golden Go, but we're going to have to find out, because it's an interesting, very similar speed tiering that both of these Pokemon are at, depending on which training as well as nature they've opted for, and that might be a bit of an indication of Francesco's worry.
Actually going to be an Archaludon that switches in, though, so still no Pelipper for either of our players, as we can see another rotation coming through from Paul. I think you're right about this. You just want to make sure that you can maybe save your Golden Go for a little bit later, and so if you were worried about that speed, you now know that you can play around that in the late game.
Yeah, as we do have the terrestrialization from the Basket Legion now over on Paul's side, wanting to at least pick up those crucial KOs, if possible, or at least, if not KOs, good enough damage, as the Basket Legion from Francesco opting to go for Protect. So this is really about being able to maintain your board positioning, as Last Respects is the move of choice, nearly guaranteeing a 2-hit KO there, but because of the stamina boost, will not be able to do so in the subsequent turn unless there's, for whatever reason, an immediate KO that Paul has to receive from his side to further boost it.
Or a crit.
Or a crit. Sorry, I completely forgot that was a game mechanic.
We have a game mechanic called crits, and it's really nice to be able to get through those big defense boosts.
I hope that's not a commentating curse moment right now.
I'm so sorry in advance.
Well, we're going to have to find out, but you're completely right. I think that would really change the game right now and force so much momentum in Paul's side, because he does still have the Sinistra. It could opt to go for Trick Room potentially, but then that puts a bit of question marks on the speed interactions between, like we mentioned before, the Golden Girl on Francesco's side and the Basket Legion over on Paul's side. But switch out, and it's going to be a Pelipper. There it is.
So there is a Pelipper to be used amongst these two players. I was a little bit worried that Francesco had actually taken a different game plan for this third game, and then no one was going to have a Pelipper.
Fair, yeah.
But we are going to end up seeing a Rage Powder, which is going to be very nice to make sure that this Basket League can actually get another turn. This Electroshot is going to go into this Sinistra instead.
Yeah, and I think that's so crucial to be able to pick up a near KO. Obviously, there's a Focus Sash to take into consideration for the Pelipper, but look at that pivot, that pitiful damage that the Electroshot is able to actually try to dispatch onto the Sinistra. This is why it's so well placed to be able to have that redirection as well as potential speed control options. And Basket Legion, now the rain's been set up, it's always going to outspeed Pelipper. So what is there to stop Paul to actually go for another redirection right now, unless there's any sort of like switch out reads perhaps, but highly unlikely.
And Last Respects here is so safe. I think Paul locking into that with the Choice Band was so intelligent. You know that you got the knockout onto your own mouse hold, so that Last Respects is already going to be 50 base power higher, and there's nothing that resists this. Like, you're going to be doing damage to everything, whether or not that Golden Ghost switches into that slot or if the Basket Legion comes back. You're so happy if you're Paul.
Oh, and actually targeting the Pelipper there, not wanting to give an additional boost, but more importantly, not wanting to allow this Pelipper to get speed control on the field, get a Tailwind set up, for example, and just being able to just redirect all these Electroshots. Sure, there is the compounding element of it getting further boost right now, so it's going to hurt just a bit more than before. Nearly picking up the KO. If there was a crit, it would have been able to, but at least right now, we're in a scenario where you're allowed to still get those very powerful last respects off. And there is also going to have to be the additional question we have to ask, Rose. There's a potential speed control, speed tie situation between both Basket Legions as they're both Swift Swim.
I will say, though, that because Francesco's isn't choice band, you actually could just use something like an Aqua Jet here. Aqua Jet into the Sinistra. Maybe that's going to be enough to knock it out because of how low HP it is.
Yep.
And then the Archaludon on your side is free to go for an Electro Shot into the Basket Legion. That would be a great way for Francesco to just get a double KO here.
Yep.
But it comes down to whether or not this Aqua Jet can actually take out the Sinistra.
There is a concern with that I feel like Paul may have to consider. If the Sinistra goes down, it gives another 50 base power boost onto the Basket Legion, so that might actually be enough to pick up the KO onto the Archaludon over on the other side of the field. But no, it's actually going to be switched out for his own Archaludon over on Paul's side, so not wanting to risk that, as there it is. Aqua Jet is going to target down the Sinistra and pick up the KO.
Picking up the KO is great. You do give over another one of those last respects boosts, but you're looking at this opportunity here for Paul to make sure that that Basket Legion is not going to take this Electro Shot. It's going to be the Archaludon instead, and it leaves your Basket Legion to now play that potential speed tie.
Yeah, and I think what further improves this situation for Paul is now you've just got last respects at the back, which is even more powerful. And you're like, okay, cool, right. Now I've got another boost on my Archaludon, at least stamina-wise. Cool. Now I've got this heavyweight of a Pokemon in the back that is just really prepared to pick up the necessary KOs that he needs to, but we got to say it again, there could be speed tie interactions going on, because we know at least the Basket Legion over on Francesco's side is not locked in. It does have that splash plate, but is it even enough to pick up the KO on the full health Basket Legion over on Paul's side? I'm not sure.
It's a tough call. I kind of wonder, maybe even with this Basket Legion switching in, does Paul actually want to go for something like the Aqua Jet instead? I don't think so. I think it's really risky because you're not necessarily sure that the body press from your own Archaludon is actually going to be enough to secure the KO onto Francesco's. So I think you do try to just utilize Wave Crash or Last Respects. I love Last Respects as an option because you're not taking recoil. And it is faster.
It is faster, and it's enough to pick up the KO thanks to that additional 50 base power because of the Sinistra getting KO'd. Last Respects from Francesco's side, not quite enough to pick up the KO. Of course, it had further increased damage output because of the Archaludon going down there, and this is looking like it is all she wrote. Archaludon going for the Electro Shot. You can see it in Francesco's face right now of dismay. Basket Legion is out for the count, leaving this Golden Go on its own, and at this point, it's got a very high hill to climb.
Oh, it's so unfortunate. You could see Francesco being really frustrated with that speed interaction. Yes, the Last Respects would have not been able to get the KO by itself onto the Basket Legion. We can see how it was able to hang on there with the modifier that you talked about.
Right.
But you are putting it in range where this Golden Go might be able to actually maybe do a little bit more damage. Maybe you were able to protect on the next turn. But at this point, you're going to try to stall out the inevitable. I understand the frustration here. It would have been nice to be able to get that damage down first.
It would, but then again, I feel like you need to be able to try to get a crit, realistically, to be able to hope that you could even pick up a KO, which, honestly, from that range that we saw, I'm not even sure if a crit would have been enough. So a very tough situation. Like you said, completely understand any sort of frustrations with the speed ties, but I just feel like the most crucial thing is the fact that we had Paul repositioned to have both Archaludon and Basket Legion paired up against each other, especially with the rain now that's ended.
I think Francesco was also maybe a little surprised that the Last Respects was able to actually get the KO onto the Archaludon. It did have some stamina stacks. It would have had that increased defense, but I think at this point too, you're always going to be able to do that super effective damage into the Golden Go. But take a look at these speed interactions. This Golden Go is actually moving first. And so it would have been really nice to be able to get the knockout onto the Basket Legion since the rain is gone.
Yeah, and I think this introduces a bit of a win condition for Francesco. If there's a miss of a Snarl and Paul's opted in for it, maybe consecutive actually, this might be the way unless we just see a safe move.
Wait a minute.
Oh my lord, it's actually missed. Oh no, we've done it again, Rose. Yeah, so, this might actually be huge.
Oh no! I mean that's kind of a really interesting position for this Archaludon to be in. I still think that Paul. It comes down to whether or not the Golden Go with something like a Shadow Ball would be able to be enough to actually knock out this Archaludon with the Assault Fist. It's going to be close.
Oh, it's not enough. The question now is, can this Archaludon actually pick up a KO? Does it touch? It goes for Snarl. Paul, what are you doing? You're giving me a heart attack. But it does pick up a KO, and all of a sudden we've got Paul RUIZ at 4-0 in day one.
Wow, that was a nail biter at the end there. I was figuring, okay, Paul played to the end game. You've got this, like, you're able to